I'm going to just give it 1 minute, right? So we started
Yeah.
exact at 10 a.m. CET.
Yes. So do we have any attendee? Can you just check if we have? Yes.
Yeah. It's not going live. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it's live now.
Okay. Okay. We start?
Yeah, I think. Can you check from your end how many attendees you have? I mean, it's
Yeah.
showing right now.
Yeah. So I have one.
Okay, I think let's wait for 1 or 2 minutes. Let
Yeah.
other.
And we'll let others join in. Right?
Yeah, we'll start at 10:02.
Yeah. 10. We'll just give it another 1 minute. So we have
Yeah,
all participants in.
sure.
Right. I think we can start, Parna.
Sure.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful webinar for PKI as a service, security served on a silver platter. We are your presentees. So I'm Ashok Kulandaivel. I have around 15 years of experience on building, implementation, and designing PKI environments. And I currently run the product management for PKI as a service for Appux. And with me is Parnashree Saha. She has around 10 years of experience in building and consulting PKI with Encryption Consulting. Can you get to the next slide? Thank you. Just a bit of overview over our companies. So AppUX is a low-code automation platform, right? So we enable NetOps, SecOps with greater amounts of agility. So our motive is to promote crypto agility, right? Especially for the NetOps and SecOps teams. We house two products, Cert Plus, which is a certificate lifecycle automation, and a PK as a service platform as well. And the other is an Automation Plus, which is basically for all the ADC devices, application delivery and network security automation. With Cert Plus, we manage both, on-premise, uh, managed and cloud hosting platforms, especially with PKI and certificate lifecycle management, and also cloud automation. Our customers include both Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies at a larger scale. We are headquartered in New York and we have our offices all around the globe. Yeah, over to you, Parna.
Okay, thank you, Ashok. Hello, everyone. I'm Parnashree Saha. I work as a PKI senior consultant with Encryption Consulting for more than a year now, and I have designing and implementation experience for different encryption and data protection solutions, including PKI, Warmetric, HashiCorp Vault, and let me just give a brief introduction of encryption consulting. So we have been providing consulting services on the cybersecurity field, so, for encryption, PKI, HSMs, certificate management, etc. And we have been serving the Fortune 500 companies in the last 2+ years. Yeah, so I think that's all from my end, Ashok. And Ashok will take us through the slides now. So I'm handing over to Ashok now.
Thank you, Parna. Yeah. Let's get to the next slide. Yeah. So the agenda for today is we're going to first start looking at the current state of enterprise PKI. Right? So where we lie, where does PKI lie as of now? What challenges are with the current PKI impacts, right? And then what impact has cloud brought on PKI? What are those demands that are in on the current trends, right? And a general concept, let's start looking at what is a PKI as a service, right? And how does it differ from the traditional deployment models? And then let's start looking at PKI as advantages, right? What advantages does it bring to the table? And what do you have to look in when you kind of probably finalize a solution for your environment? What do you really need for your environment, right? And how AppUX makes a difference in the PKI as a service space. Yes, thank you, Aparna. Let's get to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. So starting, now the current state of enterprise PKI, right? So this is what we have found in the current market. So most of these deployments are monolithic. So for example, most of these deployments are based on a Microsoft product, which, most of you would agree is not scalable, right? So you have, it serves your internal certificate purposes, but then when the growth demands, now as you know, we have short-lived certificates, and when we have short-lived certificates, the growth demands, there's new infrastructure that needs to be start building. There's IoT space that is growing, right? So on a regular basis, there's demand on PK certificates where it needs scalability, which our current state of enterprise PKI doesn't offer. So your architecture needs to be more micro based, right? So it needs to scale as to when you need. It needs to probably grow up as you need, and probably needs to provide on what you actually use, right? And most of these environments also do not support the growing demand for cloud. Now, there are a lot of organizations are moving towards cloud, are building all their applications, are taking it towards cloud. They're starting using or hosting it on the cloud platform. But with the on-premise solutions or managed, right, it becomes growingly impossible to kind of integrate when you literally need to enroll your services or secure your services in the cloud space. Another major disadvantage that we found is most of the on-premise solutions aren't managed. So most of these environments are basically handled using spreadsheets, right? A lot of manually work involved, which leads to a lot of outages. For example, Microsoft Teams went down, right? If it could happen to such a major organization, it literally could happen to all of us, which is where it needs to be managed. This needs to be automated. The other part is when it causes an advantage, right? When there's a certificate expiry, when a certificate is expired, right? The major advantage is most of the organizations do not know where these certificates are installed on. Where do these endpoints lie? Now, most of these certificates are multi-domain certificates, right? Which are probably installed on more than one hosts. And the personals or the organization do not have any kind of an outline on where these endpoints lie, right? Causing a major outage, which actually happened with Microsoft for its teams. The other complexity here is, the personal or the technical people on PKI are very limited, right? So the technical knowledge that inspired on PKI is very limited. So you need or management of these such resources becomes a major hassle. The other is the solution needs to integrate with growing technologies. So you need it to kind of integrate with evolving technologies where you need it to probably handle IoT space. You need it to handle other resources, probably MDMs, and say the PAMs and HSMs. Right? And one last with our experience in AppUX and encryption consulting is that we have seen there's no diversity in the number of certificate authorities used. Right? So when we say diversity in certificate authorities, we mean a certificate authority for each of those key usages. Right? So code signing dedicated to one particular CA. Right? And then user certificates and device certificates probably dedicated to another CA. TLS and IoT is dedicated to another CA. So what this brings to the table is even if one particular certificate authority gets compromised, the rest of the systems are secure, rather than the whole architecture crashing down. This probably diversifies as to what gets compromised, right? And the recovery kind of is much faster. Yeah. So the next slide is the impact of cloud on PKI, right? The demands as to what is brought in PKI. Now, one of the major demands is security, right? Now, with cloud, how much of a security can you bring onto the table? How does this addressed? How are the policies, procedures? What kind of you know access controls and set, right? Or what kind of own measures and policies? And another major aspect which is brought is each of these companies have their own policies defined. And so when this meets with cloud, we need to ensure the product kind of adapts to the company's policies rather than having a growing demand of its own. Right? And the other challenge would be that cloud comes in with its own certificate authority. So as of now, you have Google CAs, you have Azure offering its own CA. So you have AWS come up with its own CA and certificate management system as well. So this the growing evolving technologies brings that particular complexity to the table. So we need that particular solution to adapt and integrate to all the growing demands. Now, another aspect or complexity is that, as we said, short-lived certificates. Now, most of you are aware, TLS certificates are being limited to 398 days right now, right? So most of us are going to run into 365 days, right? And there are other short-lived certificates which we are looking at, say, 1 month per se, and 1 week. So as technologies evolve, as we are moving towards more of an agile solution, the certificate life cycles, right, are going to get reduced. So there are going to be number of certificates that are going to be issued, which kind of explodes in numbers, which is where there's another impact where the solution needs to be really scalable to kind of handle that particular aspect. And traditional PKI cannot keep up with the agility, right? So when we talk about crypto agility, agility is the means where even if one particular hierarchy of certificates are compromised, the speed or the fast as to how fast you can recover from migrating all those affected certificates to a new CA. How fast can this be done, or how swift can this be done? How secure can you move to a new CA if the whole hierarchy has been compromised? Right? But one of the aspect that we have noticed is crypto agility comes at a cost of the PKI solution, right? So which should actually be in inverse where PKI needs to be take probably put on a front seat and crypto agile included with it. Now, with cloud comes in high availability, right? Comes in how much we usually all those environments need to give you those 5 nines, right? So it needs to be 99.95 or it needs to be 99.995, right? And so all these solutions also probably need to start looking on the fly updates. How do you manage these services? How do you kind of patch, or how do you run all these updates without bringing in an outage or without bringing down the whole system? Yes, Aparna, can you move to the next slide?
Yeah, I'm at the next slide.
Okay. Yeah. So what is PKI as a service? So what does it bring to the table, right? So PKI as a service necessarily just brings you all the infrastructure, right? The automation, what kind of controls you need to bring in this whole infrastructure together, and the distribution of certificates, right? Gives you that centralized management of certificates in a single pane view, right? And also gives you that particular control where your data and control stays with you, and this, the vendor just manages a service for you. Now most of the people here, have thoughts where a cloud managed PKI, there are probably products in the environment where, people consider a cloud managed PKI as a PKI service, right? Necessarily no. So there's a huge difference between a cloud managed PKI and a PKI as a service, and I will be taking you through the differences in the next slide. Yeah, right. So what? Let's talk about the difference first, right? So what does this managed PKI and how does it differ from a PKI as a service, right? So managed PKI generally means you have a vendor probably, giving you a zero setup services, right? And they give you professional services in managing the environment, but that doesn't necessarily mean the data is kind of isolated, right? So the data is also maintained, right? But with PK as a service, the whole architecture, the whole infrastructure with the security, the policies and procedures are all maintained by the vendor. But your data and control stays with you. This is actually the major difference, right? And with the managed PKI, as to what happens in the background is completely abstracted. But with the cloud PKI, again, the infrastructure is completely managed, but you retain complete control over the system, right? So your data is with you. Now, what difference does it actually mean with an on-premise PKI, right? So with on-premise PKI, now people have kind of deployed Microsoft solutions or have deployed other, probably open source solutions would actually know, right? So bring in a two-tier hierarchy or a three-tier hierarchy, right? How many root CAs, and where do you put a root CA? How do you store a root CA? How can you protect your CA keys? All these are particular aspects that need to be thought of, and the infrastructure complexity as to how many OCSPs you need to kind of resolve. Where do you put your CRLs? How are you going to probably validate all those infrastructure that's on cloud as well as on premise? Now there could be hybrid environments. How do you kind of share or distribute your certificates to all these environments? These are that particular complexity and on-premise PKI can't review, which, with the PKI as a service, it literally stays open. It is provided by the vendor. All you need is to plug and play. Now, an initial process, now an on-premise PKI might, probably sound as less expensive when comparatively with managed PKI and a PKI as a service. But when you need that scalability, when you need probably extended services, when you're bringing in IoTs, when you need your certificate services to expand to other technologies, is where the whole complexity lies. Is where you need to probably start planning your whole environment, right? You need to bring in that particular technical expertise. You need to spend on the infrastructure, right? And comparatively, the time you need to kind of plan again with the change plans and the freezes, right? Yes. So here is a general comparison, right, with an on-premise PKI, it's a managed PKI, and a PKI as a service. So as you know, with on-premise PKI, you need to kind of plan from scratch, right? You need to build in a complete design and architecture. You need your teams to spend on it. You need to kind of study, build in the policies, the procedures, build in your certificate practice statements, your certificate policies, right? With a managed PKI, yes, you have a vendor who kind of builds the environment for you. He frames the certificate practices, the policies around for you. And with the PKI service, it's again, as I said, as a plugin. These are already built in. These are all already thought of. They have been administered to all the latest security practices. right? And all the procedures. So all you need to do is just plug in and play, right? And the other aspect with an on-premise PKI is again revamping. The if you need to probably have it adapt to an hybrid, you need to probably integrate with cloud is where the complexity lies, right? Managed PK, yes, it is kind of adaptable. You can customize it as you need, but then that comes in maintenance cost. There comes the AMC costs, right? And then the infrastructure and hardware is again which is built, right? With a PKS service, the advantage it actually brings to the table is all these services are given to you at a reasonable cost, and you just pay for what you use, right? So you need, say, 10K subscription certificate, you just pay for all those 10K, and you need to probably enroll IoTs, you just pay for what you use, right? And the other aspect which PKIaaS brings to the table is you do not need the tribal knowledge. You do not need a technical team to kind of administer this. So all you need is somebody to just run that data for you, and the rest regarding the maintenance and live is done by the provider for you, right? The other important aspect which PKIaaS kind of brings you to the table against a managed and on-premise is it is rapidly scalable. It's readily scalable. So let's say today you need 10K certificates, and then the next week, there's a sudden blast, right? And you need around 100K. You need your solution to scale up to 100K certificates. PKI as a service can do that for you. Thank you. Now, these are some of those advantages that PKIaaS brings to the table, right? So, as I said, the scalability factor. PK as a service can give you that scalable from 100 to 10K certificates, or even scalable to 1 million or 10 million certificates with use, right? So and you just pay for what you use. Now let's say for managed and on-premise, even though you have built-in infrastructure, and then probably a later part of time comes in when you actually just make use of say 10K certificates, but then you have an environment that's actually built for 1 million, right? So that there's that particular resource utilization and that particular cost that is incurred. With PK as a service, again, this comes in the literal aspect of a PK service. It's ease of use, right? So your installation, the setup, policies, procedures, all that is all completely scaled up for you, right? So all you need is just plug and play and start making use of the service. And PKS service administers to security. So it is always built on an SOC2 platform, right? And you have HSMs backed with a PCI DSS standards. All that is compliant. And with PKI as a service, the traditional cost now, though the subscription cost might seem linear, when you look at a longer period of time, right? It will actually become dwarfed when comparatively to the on-premise PK and managed solutions, especially when it incurs the AMC costs and scalability costs. And one major difference that it brings to the table is crypto agility, right? So if a particular hierarchy of certificates or particular certificates have been compromised, you have that agility to kind of migrate to another CA in no time, right? So that is one of the important aspect it brings to the table. Yeah. Okay, so here are a few points to kind of just tell you or give you an idea on what you need to be looking at if you are looking at a PK as a solution, right? So one of the major important is it should be easy to use. All you need to is just plug and play your environment, right? And all the other is also you need to know that your data lies with you, right? And nobody has control over your data except for you. Other important aspect is that it adapts to your development type, right? So now most of the organizations might have Windows, rest of them might have Linux, Unix platforms or other platforms, and you need the particular solution to adapt to any kind of platform that you use, and not to probably just provide you to us, not to have you stick to a particular platform so that it can be supported. Right? The other aspect is you need any solution. to integrate with your existing CAs. Now, as I said, most of us would be running an MSPKI, right? CAs, and some of us probably running an open source CAs like XCA, for example. Right? So you need probably the solution to also integrate with these XCAs and kind of manage certificates and start providing certificates. And an important aspect would be to migrate these certificates, existing certificates, with ease to a new hierarchy. Other important aspect would be to have the centralized management of all the certificates, and then how do you distribute the policies? How do you bring out the access control, right? How fine-grained controls can you implement? And what kind of a HSM is brought in? Is it FIPS 143, stage 3 compliant? Are your CA keys secure? How well is your root CA kind of, stored and protected? The other very important aspect, as probably I started at the initial of this discussion, is how do you kind of push certificates to your endpoints? Is it automated? You want the solution doing that for you. So even if one particular certificate is scattered about 100 endpoints, you want that automated solution identifying these solutions, scanning these devices, and automatically push these certificates to those endpoints so that they are populated and there's literally no outages. And it gives you zero outage advantage. Right? And the other aspect is that the uptime, right? As I said, give you five nines or give you that 99.95 or 99.995, right? Carry those services without any outages and on the fly updates, right? So these are some of the AppUX PKI solution capabilities. So how do we differ in the market, right? So with our solution, we offer an end-to-end certificate lifecycle management and automation, right? So any certificate gives you a complete end-to-end management and can be driven and automated with our workflows, API calls, any DevOps tools that can be integrated with us. And one advantage that we carry over any other solution is we have a multi-platform support. So we could integrate with any CAs. We could kind of built in, we have our own built-in CAs, right? And we also integrate with any CA so that we give you provision on a multi-CA platform, right? We are CA agnostic. And we have compliant HSM backed safes. We have a security vault to probably store your symmetric keys, right? And key distributions as well. And one advantage is that we have our integrations with any of those solutions that you bring in. So we could integrate with any of those ITSMs that you have, or any of those third-party vendors, any of your ADCs, right? Any solution that's available in the market, we have vast built-in integrations, and these are all in-house. So that is also one of the major advantage that we bring in. And our workflows are self-serviceable. So all you need to is just put in your IP addresses or your host and just call in a workflow, and we would be able to push it to the endpoint, which are easily customizable according to your needs, right? And we have around thousands of workflows that could give you support or bring in any kind of an automation that you need to the table. And one major advantage is that we give you a single plane of view, right? We bring in all those certificates in a single glass pane, which gives you an easy management, discover, reporting, right? And an easy to use GUI, which you can kind of navigate around, just play around with. The next slide. Thank you. And see, most of the solutions in the market, you need an extra database to integrate with, which costs you, much price, and something that's not scalable, right? But our we bring in a built-in database which is highly scalable and highly distributed, right? And our scanning is at the edge. We are one of the latest solutions that give you, complete scanning. It could be IP, subnet, DNS, name it. We bring it to the table, right? And our supports are 24/7, 365 days, any time of the year, right? And we give you complete support free. with an uptime of 99.95. And as I said, we also include all any kind of workflows for your integrations, right? Be it pre, post validation scripts, approvals, right? So you might have multiple hierarchy approvals for a certificate that's been done, especially code signing when it carries such an integrity, right? So anything you could kind of customize it and put it with our easy to use workflows. Yeah, is over to you, Parna.
Yeah, thank you, Ashok. So I do see there are a few questions which have come, and we are already at 10:30. So Ashok and I will take up the questions, but just give me, I mean, I'll take few minutes of yours to explain, just give you a brief about Encryption Consulting's PKI as a service. So we offer a customizable and high assurance PKI solution. So, and to be mentioned that it is on both on-prem and on the cloud. So we are offering PKI as a service in Azure, AWS, ACM PCA, which is the private CA, and also with the managed CA, and with Google Cloud as well. So the solutions are suitable for both existing and new built PKI infrastructure. So, for example, if you already have a PKI built in your environment and you want to move it to the cloud, we can use your root CA, and we can plan accordingly. We can design as per your business requirement with the keeping the standards on. So yeah, that's all from my end. Thank you so much for joining. Ashok, will you take up the questions?
Yes, thank you. So I will take up the first question from Kamal. So can we have the root CA on-premise for PKIaaS? Yes. So if you have a data center and if you know how to kind of protect your root CA, yes. So with a root CA, usually the best practice is to just publish your trust anchor and keep the root CA offline, right? So you could have your root CA published and keep it on premise. All you need to just ensure the trust anchor is present on your cloud for all your certificates to be trusted. So yes, it could be done. I will also take the second question from Kamal. It is for PK as a service, can the client provide the certificate policy for PK as a provider? Yes, indeed. So the certificate policy and the certificate practice statement can be provided by the can be provided, the client can provide as to what they need for the organization. Now usually this is how it happens, right? So the client can sit with us in regards with the CP or the CPS and frame it according to their needs. Now this particular CAs are dedicated CAs built for the client, so they can sit in through the CPCPSs as well as the root key ceremony process as well, right? So yes, this is also done. I will
So
also, yes, sorry,
yeah,
Parul.
so
Yeah, take it.
yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
I was just asking the participants if they have any other question for
Yeah,
us.
there's another question from Kamal as well. So let me take that as well. Can AppUX automate ADC CS? If yes, which kind of features can AppUX provide for ADCS Microsoft CS? Okay, yes. So AppUX basically, can handle any kind of a device platform, right? So it could handle from ADC CAs to any kind of platform. So with what kind of features we have is we do support Acme protocols, we do support EST, we do support any kind of an MDM protocols that is required or IoTs that bring to the table. With ADCS Microsoft, we do support very similar auto enrollment, right? We can support auto enrollment for Microsoft CAs, as well as if usually one particular disadvantage with a Microsoft CA is you need the user to be joined to the environment or joined to the domain to enroll for a certificate, right? But we break these cycles wherein we provide you EST enrollment, where all the user needs to be is an authenticated user of the domain, and he doesn't need to be probably joined to the domain, right? And we could still enroll him using an EST protocol. And these are one of those major turns of events we bring to the table. And we go beyond Microsoft CAs where we bring you automation. So we have an extensible end-to-end automation lifecycle for F5s, right? We could literally automate any process of F5s, and similar to Cisco devices or any other ADCS devices you bring into the table. So it is not only with Microsoft. We have integrations with all the CAs that are available, from right from Entrust, Digicert to any CA, you name it. So yes, thank you. Uh,
So I think there's no other question, and we are
yeah,
good. Thank you so much.
any other questions? We are happy to take it. Or Aparna, can you just bring up that particular last slide? So you can
Sure.
always contact us or drop us an email for any questioners, and we'll be happy to kind of guide you in. Right. So
Yes.
these are our numbers and my email address as well as Parnas. So please feel free to reach out to us, right, or contact us, and we'll be glad to help you out.
Thank you everyone for
So
joining.
thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank you.
evening. Thank you.